I'm Madelyn Ross from George Mason University, and this is Confucius, the great Chinese sage. Around the country, more and more students are studying Chinese and learning about the land of Confucius from its great ancient traditions to its powerful impact on the world today. As you might expect, many of these students are eager to find a way to study in China and learn firsthand about this distant, exotic country. This used to be a challenge, but luckily, more and more opportunities for study in China have begun to open up. Here at Mason, we offer several short-term programs, an internship, and the chance for college students to spend a year studying at a college in China. In 2009, we established a Confucius Institute, which has allowed us to offer several new programs, including a summer trip to China for high school students. Join us as we talk with several Mason students who've recently come back from China and find out how their experience turned out. But first, let's learn a bit about the Chinese program here. I'm talking now to Professor Karl Zhang, who's started the Chinese language program here at George Mason University. Karl, tell us a little bit about Chinese at George Mason.
Thank you, Madeline. Okay, George Mason started our Chinese program almost 10 years ago, or I would say 11 years ago. I came here in 1999 to initiate our Chinese program, and George Mason University hired me with the thought that probably I can teach part-time Chinese because we may not have enough enrollment. But it turned out differently. But now Chinese is the third strongest program in the foreign language department, just next to Spanish and French. At George Mason, we have a Center for Global Education. And that center, in collaboration with the Department of Modern and Classical Languages, organizes a summer intensive studies program in China.
If they have a chance to go for the summer, do they need to be able to speak Chinese before they go?
You don't need to have studied Chinese before. If you don't know anything, you are still welcome to apply through this program.
Okay. What about if you're going for a year? When do you think is the right time?
If you're going for a year as a college student, you better have completed 1 year of your language study here at Mason or at your base college.
Okay.
You get some basic ideas of the language.
Then you can hit the ground running,
yes,
as it were?
Yes.
It's interesting that studying in China has become a much hotter topic since Obama went to China in November of 2009. When President Hu Jintao came to Washington, January 2011, Michelle Obama hosted a seminar in which a number of Americans who'd studied in China came and talked about their experiences.
And some of our students who studied in China will be able to attend.
That's right.
Okay.
The idea was to spread the word that China is not as far away as you think. And if you're interested in learning the language, we're going to try to find ways to help you get there.
I decided to apply for the CSE Chinese Scholarship, obviously because I wanted a chance to see a new country, to get out of the U.S. and experience a new culture and understand the Chinese people. I've been interested in Chinese language, culture, history, just about everything about it for the past 8 years.
It was the junior year of Mason that I went to Wuhan, and I started my freshman year. I did about 4 semesters of Chinese, but 3 were language intensive and 1 was culture intensive before I got the scholarship to go to Wuhan.
I had taken 2 semesters of Chinese here before I went, and I thought my Chinese was pretty good, but when I got there I realized being surrounded by native speakers and just the everyday interactions were so different than what it's like in the classroom. So I thought my Chinese was pretty good, but I realized once I got there that I had a long way to go.
Well, I had previously studied Chinese as an undergraduate for 2 years prior to going, but I wanted to learn more Chinese. I kind of found that being here in the US, I kind of hit a wall where I couldn't learn any more Chinese as far as verbally. I didn't have necessarily a chance to practice it, so I wanted to go there and immerse myself, force myself to speak with people on a daily basis and listen to people on a daily basis.
I'd been to China in high school for a month, and it was sort of like an intensive thing, and that's what made me want to study Chinese. And I started really learning it when I came to Mason. And then a professor suggested a week-long program in Weihai in 2008, and it was about 2 weeks. It was very quick. It was just because it was affordable. I went, and it was just sort of like a visit, and I saw Weihai and Harbin, and I made some friends. I didn't learn as much language as I wanted to, but it was sort of like the initiation into sort of understanding how it is to travel in China.
So George Mason started a Confucius Institute in 2009. How has that changed the opportunities available through the university for studying in China?
Confucius Institute is really the blessing for us. With the establishment of the Confucius Institute, we could enlarge, expand our opportunities for our students. In Virginia, so far, Confucius Institute at George Mason is the only Confucius Institute in the state, but there will be a second one coming at the College of William and Mary. Mm-hmm. So now we are organizing summer camp for high school students. The domestic cost in China will be covered by the Confucius Institute headquarters. Students only need to pay for the international airfare. In the first summer, we recruited 28 students. In the second summer, we recruited 35 students.
It's actually amazing how fast the Confucius Institutes have multiplied. Mm-hmm. I think the latest numbers are more than 300 worldwide. Mm-hmm. And
it's around 80 in
the United States, which includes at least one in almost all of the 50 states.
Yes.
So if you're interested in going to China, it's a good place to start to find out if there's a Confucius Institute in your state.
In your state. Mm-hmm.
And they should be able to tell you about opportunities in China.
Scholarships and the summer studies, summer camps.
Mm-hmm. And the Institute for International Education, which is based in New York, mm-hmm. Has recently published a pamphlet called Study Abroad in China. Mm-hmm. And that is a compilation of as many programs as they could find, both at universities and at other organizations that specialize in study abroad. Mm-hmm. So there's really almost a program out there for everybody, I think.
Dr. Karl was actually the one that taught me for the 110 course, and he recommended that I apply for this scholarship. He was telling me that there's nothing equivalent to the experience that you can get going to China itself to learn the language and practice it and pick up the nuances that you can't learn from a textbook. So I decided to apply. I was a little nervous at first. I've never been out of the country before this or anything, so this was a really, really big leap.
So much faster when you go there. It's nice and easy over here, and it's sort of paced well, and it helps you understand the concepts like grammar. You can hear grammar lessons in English, and if you have some sort of Chinese, any workable Chinese when you get there, you practice it every day with buying food and with your professors. And I was in a Chinese course where we just study Chinese, but the really interesting thing is that since we're all from different countries, even though we have very little Chinese, the whole class had to be in Chinese because not everybody understood English. And to hear the professors explain to us concepts like grammar, they did it so that we could understand. But it was so helpful that it was always in Chinese. It helps you stay in the mindset and really understand and get into the language.
Even just with the way that the classes are conducted, everything's taught in Chinese. You have to reply in Chinese, ask your questions in Chinese, do the whole school registration process in Chinese. And then you get to the point where you just can't even believe how much Chinese that you're learning and at how fast of a rate compared to what you'd be learning in a classroom setting back in the US.
Well, my classmates were from all over the world, so some from Europe, some from South America, some from Asia itself, Japanese, Korean.
Even, on the streets, you learn slang. You learn, what they say, that the Koyu, the street speak, the common speak, that people use that, they don't teach you in textbooks. I mean, I can't reiterate that enough.
As far as at the school, there are plenty of Chinese students that are looking for language partners that you can partner with.
And really, a lot of my language abilities I developed outside of the classroom, which I thought was really interesting, going to China and actually being immersed. I was forced to learn the language, and it really, traveling and being out, going and buying groceries and shopping and doing all the little things that aren't difficult here, but in a different language over there, really helped me gain my language skills.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, definitely. Just with small things, like, every day going to the store to have to buy some fruit or some drinks, or just the smallest transactions, you'd have to do everything in Chinese. That's not to say that some Chinese people don't know English, it's just they very infrequently use it. They only learn, okay, this is how you read it, this is how you write it. They don't really have the practice of speaking it, so they're very shy with using it, and thus you have to rely on your Chinese to get by.
I like to go shopping in the little shops. They're everywhere. And they're kind of crazy if there's a big concentration of them, and it's a lot of fun to sort of go through the market and see all the different things. Oh yeah, you have to bargain. It's a lot of fun.
We visited just, some shops and, walked around the city, enjoyed ourselves. And there was one man at a kiosk that made these caramel lollipops, but they were so detailed, it was ridiculous, of him just taking a scoop of hot, melted caramel and drawing these pictures with it. And he'd do, zodiac animals, for instance, or just really elaborate dragons, or just works of art, and then he'd put it on a lollipop to give to you for someone to eat. And they were really cheap, probably about 20 kwai, for something like that is ridiculous. So I enjoyed that a lot.
I got to go to Shanghai and also to Hong Kong, and I got to go out west a little bit to Shanxi province, to a city, Pingyao, and also to Xi'an.
While I was there, I was able to travel all throughout China with classmates, on class trips, and then also some of my family came over and I was able to travel with them.
My mother came over and I took her around the other cities. A lot of my classmates did similar things where one or two of their parents would come over and they'd sort of go through a few cities together so they could see different sights.
To a few places, yeah, I flew, but then to some of the other ones to save money, I did a train by train. So that was very interesting.
I went to Chengde, which is up north, for my fall semester towards the end when it was almost winter approaching. And I went up there with probably 4 or 5 friends. It was my first time going on a Chinese train. I did what they call the hard seats, which didn't have any heat or anything, but it was fine. It was a really good experience because I got to talk to the locals on the train.
If you're looking to immerse yourself amongst Chinese people, that's definitely a great way. I know that I was one of the only foreigners on the train, and so you're in a confined space with a lot of people, and you just naturally end up talking to them and talking about different things, playing cards with them. So
they were so fascinated by the fact that, they got to interact with foreigners that were, I guess, going native, that were doing it the way that they would do it rather than paying for the really luxurious, train seats or taking a plane up there or something, for instance. But while we were there, we ran into many locals, people that just have not seen foreigners ever. And they were just so ecstatic to see, these Waigo-rens, these foreigners. And they would stop us and they're like, can we get your picture? And, can you take your picture with us? And then, yeah, all right, let's, do 20 more pictures each with, each individual person. And it was just nuts. It was a whole photo shoot while we were up there. And we went ice skating with some of the foreigners, some of the locals up there. Their definition of ice skating was very weird. I guess you could call it like sledding. It was this wooden block kind of seat you'd sit on with 2 large ice picks, and you can just push yourself on the ice like that. And we talked to one shopkeeper that was selling snacks, and she trained some of these deer to come up to her at regular intervals throughout the day. And she would say, 谢谢, thank you. And then the deer would bob its head as if to say, 谢谢. And then she'd feed it a cracker. So we got to do this, and it was just the coolest thing in the world.
I also went to Harbin. It was very cold. We stayed for about 4 days, I believe. They have, I guess, 3 areas, a big ice sculpture area. They also have a snow sculpture area, and then they have another area that's a mix, and so each day we kind of picked out one.
We wanted to go and climb the Great Wall, but we didn't want to go to the touristy area. We wanted to do something where we could really enjoy it for ourselves. So we found someone who was willing to take us to a non-touristy area, and we hiked about 10 kilometers on the Great Wall, and it was parts of the Great Wall that hadn't been renovated, so it was like falling apart, and it was really like we probably passed 10 people in the 10 kilometers that we hiked, and it was just so beautiful, so peaceful. We saw these kids playing, and it looked like they were playing like Red Rover, and we were like, wow, when we were that age, we did that too. And it's just everything, the people are so similar to us, but then you look at other things, and things are so different, but it's like when it comes down to it, we're all the same, which I thought it really just opened my eyes to that, because I don't know, it just seems like a lot of people think things are so different in other countries.
I would suggest my students to at least send a short note to me once per month, and also would suggest that the students over there write a weekly journal to send back to their friends here back home and the family members, and copy me. Okay, so talk about the experience. If you have problems, let us know. We'll use our resources. We're going to help. Okay.
The wonderful thing about being over there is I made so many friends that it was just as if I had another family out there. So like for instance, for Thanksgiving, we would all shell out, a few hundred kwai to get a really nice Western, dinner at a restaurant, to just do reservations, go out, enjoy ourselves. And for Thanksgiving, we talk about, what we're thankful for, and, just very traditional things that you would think, oh, I could only do this at home with my family. I don't know, there's just something nice about celebrating these holidays with a Chinese twist.
We found Western food over there, but it's just not every day like it is here. We all got together for Thanksgiving, which was an American-specific one. We celebrated it, and we also, because there was enough Americans, we all wanted to celebrate it, and other people besides Americans sort of got into it too, and everyone wanted to celebrate it. And we sort of looked all over the city for turkey, because it was hard to find just a big whole turkey. And like 2 days before Thanksgiving, we found 2 in a store, and we got them, and everybody got together, and everybody cooked food, and we had a great time. Yeah.
So what about the students who've come back from China after they return? Typically, do they keep up with their Chinese? What do they end up doing?
Yes, to answer your question first, I would say, because some of our students go to China right after their graduation from George Mason. They study there for 1 year, then they find a job over there. Then some of them just happily settle down over there and find us a joint venture job over there, and they even try to recruit George Mason students. Hey, we have an opening over there, because it's a joint venture Chinese and American company. Some of them are still working over there. Some students came back and finished their last year and graduated. Then they try to go back to China or they apply to graduate schools. Our first Chinese scholarship recipient successfully applied to a PhD program in comparative political sciences at the University of Wisconsin. And we'll also have a student who went to the University of Chicago, the East Asian Studies, for PhD programs. And some of them are actively preparing for the Foreign Service examination. They want to work with the government. And they are trying their best to maintain their language skills. And if you contact them, you talk to them, they very much want to get opportunities to go back to China to spend some more time.
Right now I'm looking for jobs in the U.S. government, specifically State Department, but other agencies as well. Ideally, I'd like to join the Foreign Service. And in the Foreign Service, you don't choose where you go, but I would be very, very, very happy if they sent me to China or to one of the they have many outposts in China, or to someplace like Singapore, someplace close. I really want to go back.
Yeah, actually, at the moment, I'm looking for another scholarship to go back. I'm also looking, when I came back, I assumed an internship where I was using my knowledge of China and my Chinese skills. So, yeah, it's definitely something I would like to stick with, both professionally and academically in the future. People see that on the resume, and they, even if you're not using Chinese for your work, they ask you, oh, how was your time in China? How was that like? So it's definitely a conversation starter.
Currently I'm at Booz Allen Hamilton. I'm not doing anything related to China or global affairs, but I'm trying to get back into that. I'm taking the Foreign Service exam next month, so hopefully that'll go well. And I want to go back to China as soon as I can.
I would absolutely love to go back, even maybe get a job out there. For anyone that's currently studying Chinese, it may seem like the country's far away and that it's a really big leap to take, but I mean, you can just at least look at my experiences, someone that's never been out of the country before, to be able to do that, still survive, still be okay, and have just life-changing experiences and long-lasting friendships with people that are just from all over the world, not even from China, alone. And I just say, give it a shot. Just go for it.
Recently, I ordered food from my favorite Chinese restaurant, and they had my address wrong, so I got a call from the delivery man, and he said he was in front of my door, but he wasn't, and I was explaining to him, are you on my street? And I said, are you on Topeka? I'm on Topeka. And he was saying, not pizza, Chinese food, and he didn't understand me. And so eventually I went into Chinese, and he said, oh, okay, and then he found me. So it's helpful.
Madelyn, actually, you also are fluent in
Right.
Chinese. You also have studied in Chinese in China. Could you share with us about your study abroad experiences in China, even if it was time ago?
It was a long time ago. In fact, it was when I went to study in Shanghai, it was 1979. So but there were very few Americans there at that time. It was a fabulous year for me, similar in many ways. I'm struck talking to the students who've recently returned from China by the fact that there are some similarities. It's almost a universal experience of getting there and feeling completely like a fish out of water, and gradually making friends and developing bonds with people that last. I'm still in touch 30 years later.
Wow, with some of your
Yeah.
friends and students.
Really, it was the beginning of my lifelong fascination with things Chinese, and my work now continues to be related to China. I find it very satisfying to be able to develop opportunities for more Americans to go to China and to learn about China.
All of the people I meet everywhere, in socially, professionally, everything. Everybody knows. Kelly spent a year in China. It really did change my life.
Well, it's clear that studying in China is still probably the best way to improve your language skills and experience the society in a personal and sometimes very rewarding way. If you decide to investigate, you'll find study abroad programs in China in all shapes and sizes, as well as programs and scholarships available from many Confucius Institutes around the country. Just be careful. If you go to China, you may find it affects your plans for study and work long after you return. So good luck and 再见.
再见.
再见.